Each and every day, all over the world, life-changing journeys begin. In classrooms and schoolyards, refugees preparing for resettlement gather together, with books and children, curiosity and questions. They come on foot or by bus to an unfamiliar place to learn about an unfamiliar land, the United States. During the next few days, the understanding of their new home will increase exponentially. This is where it starts.
Are you ready?
This is cultural orientation.
Okay, let's go. C-O-C-O-N-U-T.
Mohammed Abdallah.
Orientation might seem overwhelming at first to trainers. There is a lot of information to cover, and the needs of participants vary greatly. Finding methods to engage and teach participants can be challenging. This video features both overseas and domestic CO trainers who work with refugees along the CO continuum. Their insights about effective and engaging training approaches will hopefully be useful as you reflect on your practices.
Now, welcome to day one.
The first step in preparing any cultural orientation training is to learn more about your participants and stakeholders. Who are you about to teach? Are they accustomed to village life, or have they been living in an urban setting similar to communities in the United States? What languages do they speak? How much access have they had to information about the United States?
So if I'm preparing for an orientation class, I have to know who's coming. What's their English level? What kind of education do they have? What do they know? What don't they know? What's their literacy level? When I know that information, then I can move forward. Your function is to give them really useful information.
The most important thing is what you do before class happens. It's the planning of thinking of all the disasters that could happen. It's the development of a curriculum that allows you to throw something away and change very quickly to a new idea. So kind of trying to plan ahead allows me to hopefully work the best inside of that multicultural classroom.
So the husband has to escort them to the bus stop. Make sure they get into the bus. You don't want surprises. We have different populations. We have people speaking different languages sometimes in class. Maybe there's some who have special needs. You need to prepare for this because you don't want to be surprised in class. Does your husband help with household chores? He'll have to learn.
After a trainer learns more about the participants' current knowledge, skills, and attitudes, they can focus on planning training sessions that emphasize what the participants most need to know. Based on needs assessments, trainers can define goals, objectives, content, and appropriate methods. One way to organize all of this information is develop an outline for the training. An outline is useful when thinking about how to group participants and when determining the duration and frequency of the training sessions.
All right, good morning, everybody. We're going to be talking today about financial assistance and public assistance. People get stuck when they think of the massive amount of information, but what's able to be absorbed? Yes, you could talk from, 10 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon about how to rent an apartment or about credit or about how to be safe in a home, but prioritize. Pick 4 things from that topic and really make sure to hit those home. When teaching about 911, you want somebody to to be able to call an ambulance. When you're talking about language access, you want somebody to have the skill of calling an interpreter. Think of those things that you really want them to take home and make sure you hit those 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and then you'll make sure that you have an effective CO class. Can everyone stand up? Can we put the book on the chair? Okay, do we need to stretch a little bit? Okay, let's go one side. Oh, let's go the other side. Oh, even the baby's stretching.
Abdiwali Aden. Dubat. Yes, Dubat.
For a trainer to gauge a participant's progress and really know what they are and aren't learning, it's important to do a pre-assessment.
Now, what do you know of America?
It's really important to assess clients as orientation class is happening. The pretest is really an information gathering tool. What do you need to know about our participant to be an effective trainer? Literacy levels, education levels, did they have orientation before coming to the United States? If all participants in a class already know a certain subject, then you can either skip it or go over it very lightly.
America is a peace country. It's a peaceful country. It is a peaceful country.
When you're in a cultural orientation setup or class, one has to start from the known to the unknown. So you ask them, what do you do? Starting from what they do, and then you bring them up.
Bank accounts are necessary to keep your money safe.
We do the pre-test for participants in the beginning, just to note who is in what level and how much they have already learned about the services at the center or any other things that we teach in the orientation class. I need to repeat what I'm teaching many times, and also at the end of the day, just to make sure, repeat those questions from the beginning, whatever I'm teaching.
Good, hands down, open your eyes. Good morning.
At the beginning of the sessions, it is important first that I study the mood of my participants, because the atmosphere I create day one reflects the next few days or the few hours I'll spend with them. Secondly, focusing on the expectations and fears. The atmosphere is very important. Who will meet with you at the airport? They will do fingerprintings and give you your I-94. Very good.
What kind of rules are you going to encounter there? There is the basic part of the training of trainers, where we're introducing a new trainer to the processes, the curriculum, rushed CO, where you have nothing but just a phone call the participants and tell them in that 1 hour what you think is the most important thing for them to take with them. But then there's the little skills, the softer skills of keeping it going during the class, being very sensitive to the mood, being very sensitive to the energy levels. We like to cultivate that.
My name is Shin Thong. Please call me Shin. I'm from Myanmar.
Creative trainers find many opportunities to incorporate basic English into a CO curriculum.
Orientation classes are a good platform to teach basic ESL. In the morning, we start with participants introducing themselves, a really strong, clear, loud introduction where they say their name, their address, their phone number, and really learn to build confidence in practicing English and putting themselves out there.
Nice
to meet you too. Everybody everybody so much better than yesterday when we had everything written down on the papers. If you're going to teach an introduction and reinforce it every day, it can be a really important tool for the participants to take and then carry forward.
You can't let them on their own. And we'll talk about guidelines in regards to children's supervision in the US.
Many participants have limited English language skills. Well-trained interpreters play an important role in CO.
For some of the pre-literate people who even do not speak their languages, it is so hard for them. And we try to use interpreters. There are some rules for the interpreters. If you see some of the professional interpreters interpreting in the field, they are professionally trained.
Interpreters are obviously a very important part of the process, and having them trained and knowledgeable in both their language and in English is very important. And we have some really good interpreters that work in our cultural orientation. I've been lucky to have been working with them and to have trained them. Something that we found really important is the training beforehand. It's really important to give interpreters good background, give them all the material, talk about the material that you're going to be teaching.
It's good to sit down and establish a good rapport with your interpreters. Get time to sit down with your interpreters because they're also your trainer. They're like a trainer. Yes, they're your voice, but just their actions speak a lot.
In cultural orientation, there is a tremendous amount of information to teach. Participants engaged in interactive activities are more likely to learn and retain what they learn.
If a trainer is using a lecture format, you often see participants' faces kind of start to droop. If you are teaching and using lecture format all day, it doesn't matter if you have PhD students in your class, they're going to start to fall asleep. If you have pre-literate students or people who aren't used to being in school, they'll probably lose interest in the first 5 minutes. So think critically about engagement, engaging the clients, activities, participation, and make sure you have varied activities.
Trainers can use energizers to refocus and reinvigorate their participants. These short and fun activities help build enthusiasm and create breaks between topics.
Okay, we're gonna make a circle like this. My first name is Issa.
You use energizers to make the participants get engaged and be active in class.
My first name is Ali.
So energizers break the monotony.
My first name is Jill.
Good.
Ways of engaging participants are many, but one has to be willing also to go a step further from the norm, what is in the books. So creativity when it comes to training, that way everyone remains engaged and interactive throughout the sessions.
No English?
So who is our volunteer? Moise. Very good. It's important that we keep participants interested and all involved. They have different education backgrounds or none at all. How does one go about involving all of them? That's why you have to use different methods in class, such as role plays. Good morning, Moise. How are you today? It's getting everybody involved, even those who are probably feeling scared or who are feeling uninterested. You can bring them out as a trainer to make them get involved in an activity like role play. Okay, I'll get back to you in 2 days' time. I'll see you.
CO content is guided by a clear set of objectives and desired outcomes in both overseas and domestic orientation.
There are several ways that you can incorporate the objectives and indicators, at the same time keeping the participants engaged. One way is by grouping them. For example, you can ask Group A, the apples, to be the resettlement agency, and Group B, the bananas, to be the new arrivals to the United States. There are several ways I or you can make participants take part or become more active. Let's take an example of an activity where we coined it Shrinking Island. You request for 2 volunteers from the group, and then you have a large paper laid on the ground. So I play music. When music stops, the island is safe, but the ground begins to sink. Then you turn music on. The participants, every time the music stops, they have to be inside the shrinking island. Very good. Now you are alert. Fold the paper again into a half. Let's continue with our business. The idea of the activity is to remind the participants that they will receive assistance, but the assistance will keep shrinking like the island. So it's up to them to be proactive and remember, once they're resettled to the United States, they need to find a job in order to be self-sufficient, because the assistance will keep diminishing every single day. Thank you. Now, how was it? My 2 friends, Abdi and Mohammed, how was it?
You see, we have seen that the surface has become very small.
So things became tougher as we went by.
Yeah.
Now let's clap for them. 1, 2. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna play a small game, and then we're gonna talk about the specifics of each program. Okay, so we're gonna make a small circle.
Oftentimes, a good activity will link overseas and domestic CO training.
A lot of overseas CO is kind of lost somewhere in the ocean. But if you bring in a similar activity that they did during overseas CO, then they can remember the messages that were given and say, oh yes, I remember this. And it can really reinforce those things that were taught overseas and need to be reinforced domestically. Okay, so I'm going to play some music.
So Emma, music no?
When I hit play, I would like you to walk or dance this away.
So jama put like that ne along game show me.
A good example from our class is the musical chairs game. The game is still really revitalizing, and it brings life to the classroom. Hopefully, they've heard these messages before. The lesson behind musical chairs is that we compare it to the US job market. So musical chairs and the US job market are competitive. They involve luck. If you don't get the chair the first time, then you have to try again, you know? And the comparisons can keep going. Okay, 2 more chairs out. If you only have one person working, then everybody has to essentially fit in the chair with you. And so you might have to have 2 or 3 people working from the same family.
Cultural orientation is more than just classroom instruction. It is a continuum of ongoing learning. By repeating CO messages in a variety of different ways, and by actively involving participants, trainers can help make cultural orientation stick.
So you are 28A. If you enter, you go to the right side. Welcome aboard. A lot of people in a class learn by doing things. That's how they do it. And this learning by doing is the best for most of our participants, because most refugees haven't been to school. So does anyone know what these signs are?
Some participants are not used to a structured instructional setup like a classroom. So this is the first time they're getting into such an environment. How do you get them to sit and focus and pay attention for about 6 hours or 7 hours? This is why you need to use these methods to get them involved, for them to feel safe and for them to gain this knowledge you're trying to impart.
No one is forcing you to carry luggage. Don't go looking for stones to fill the bags and say we were told we have to carry 40 kilograms.
We also have a resource center at 2 of our training sites. It's a model of a hopefully typical American apartment, and it has a stove, storage cabins.
It's always flush.
It has a bathroom. We use that to show them how to properly use a bathroom. It has a shower curtain. We explain what the use of that is. We have posters, what to carry, what to bring on your journey, on your flights to the United States, what you're not allowed to. By the time they get to the CO class, they have a pretty good idea of what you're about to tell them.
One of the great things about teaching orientation in the United States is that their new home is right outside the door of the resettlement center. So if they walk outside of the classroom, they're automatically engaging with the very things that you're talking about. I separate the class into 2 groups, and I have one group go outside and try to find places that will be meaningful for them later on. For example, they go and find the health center or the place where they would learn how to buy a home later, or energy assistance center. Before they leave the classroom, I teach them some basic ESL. Where is, and then they point to a paper. And so they have to go outside, they have to ask Americans where to find this place. They have to go and find it and then come back and report to me what that place was.
Thank you.
In overseas CO, there's a lot of talk of the United States, a lot of showing of pictures. But in domestic resettlement, we're really lucky that we can encourage them to engage with that community right away.
I want to take us through the items that are right in front of you, and I want you to try and understand and see what I'm talking about. Has anybody seen this before? No? Okay.
Working with participants of different ages poses a new set of challenges and opportunities for the trainer.
As a trainer, it is very, very important to create a safe space with your participants. One of the ways I do it for example, in my class is I have, the first is physical. Look at the class, look at your arrangement of the class. The layout is very important.
So, do you think you will have this kind of housing in America?
For my class, it's the children. So I get chairs that are at their level. I'll put some pictures around. So you start creating an image in their mind. One thing is I talk to them, you interact, introduce yourself, have a rapport with them. Let them see that you're not like the local teachers. Your style is different. So you'll find that children are raising their hand, and when they answer, they see, oh, it's okay to answer. And you'll find everybody now raising their hand up.
young people are like a powder keg, you know. You just need the right thing to bring out all that energy. And I would say it's fun for me too as a trainer to see that transformation from that chilled out, cool demeanor they have at the beginning of the class. Are you ready? Yes! Up to the point when there's this fun activity that involves a lot of motion, they can shout freely, they can express themselves. And it's remarkable how that happens, the transition between this wondering, is this interesting? Do I even want to be here? To, oh, this is fun, this is amazing, let's enjoy this.
Personalized one-on-one orientations can help trainers better reach certain participants.
We sometimes have to do one-on-one orientation. I think it happens. Sometimes we get a family, like a single mother with 6 children who simply just can't leave her home to come to the classes, or we have an elderly couple. And then when you're in the home, that's a great opportunity to actually look at their home and see what's actually happening. You know, we go into homes, we give them an initial home orientation after you've been on a plane for 35 hours. I mean, that is so difficult for someone to grasp. So we're going to talk first about home safety. And then you look and they have poisonous materials sitting out on their counter, and so you might want to talk about poison, talk about where it should be in the home, maybe look around and see what's actually in their refrigerator. Have them walk around and kind of show you their home and demonstrate it, versus going through a test and talking about cleaning your bathroom. Walk into the bathroom. Walk into the bathroom with the client and look around. We have the interpreter at that point. We can kind of look at, see what's happening. It's a great time to praise clients.
What about this one? Bananas?
Sometimes we forget to praise people about their accomplishments, and that's so important.
Interns and volunteers contribute a great deal and are often critical to orientation.
So in the program here, I'm responsible for introducing the clients to healthcare in the United States. Health orientations are usually delivered one-on-one or in very, very small groups. The information is very heady. It can be very boring at times, but it's really, really important information that the clients know how healthcare works in the United States, because it's kind of unique. We usually will use an interpreter, and depending on if we have someone in the community, we'll actually use a community member, or if we don't, then we will use a telephonic interpreter.
Also 6163. If for some reason I speak too fast, I'm not speaking loud enough, just let me know.
I feel that there are some great benefits with working with someone individually. The downside, of course, is that it takes more time, right? And time is a non-renewable resource, and so very few things do we get to be able to meet and talk with someone one-on-one. And something that's really important to me is, yes, I understand that I have a task at hand, that there's pieces of information that I need to get across, but at the same time, there's a person sitting across from me. And I try to remember what it would be like if I was to sit in that position, how I would want them to speak to me.
I welcome refugees to the United States, help them with the housing, with renting, with applying for Social Security, train them how to ride the bus, a lot of things, like, because they came from different country and they don't know everything's here, like the culture, the cold weather, everything. And they need to adjust the new thing. I love it because I feel when first I came here, it's hard for me and it's gonna hard for them. But when they saw someone speak their language, they feel in their country. It's easy for them. I love it. I feel I'm not working, I feel I'm taking care about my family.
Each class is different and made up of diverse participants. While many participants have low levels of English or little or no formal education, there are highly educated participants as well. It is important to assess who you are teaching so you can adjust content as needed and learn how best to manage expectations or even dispel myths and rumors of what it is like to live in the United States.
Most of our refugees come from an urban setting, and often they speak English relatively well. We also have refugees that don't speak English at all, so it's a mix of good English speaking and a little bit of English. But a lot of our refugees are quite educated. Most of them have a college degree.
The biggest challenges that I face as a trainer during cultural orientation is trying to balance the different age groups, trying to balance different nationalities of participants in class. Some participants from different nationalities tend to be more vocal than others. And you want to also keep reinforcing the class guidelines of participation is important through class, listening is important.
Twice, only 2 times. Sometimes in class, you will have someone who will start to dominate the discussion. Sometimes you have someone who's very educated, or you get someone who is an interpreter in the camp. Those are sometimes your worst and best students. They can be the best students because they can be the most helpful. Sometimes they can be the worst students because they kind of start to take over everything else that's happening. And so we try really hard to allow them to speak, maybe give them a role to stand up front to demonstrate their knowledge, to kind of show off to the class that they have that knowledge, which makes them feel good, but also allows me to kind of say, okay, now we're going to let someone else have their turn, but they felt like they had a voice. Times 4.
After one or more sessions packed with information, it's important to assess what has been learned. Trainers typically ask participants a series of questions or use other reflection exercises to see what was retained.
Use of reflection questions at the end of the unit to see if the objectives were met, the indicators were met, and the participants' expectations, fears, and questions asked have been met. So reflecting back on the objective at the end is very important.
Okay, so these are pictures. Here are the agencies. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So like this picture, which agency? What we do is in addition to assessing clients throughout the orientation, we administer a pre-assessment and a post-assessment, the same assessment at the end of class, to determine what the participants learned, what they were having trouble with. Is what they're having trouble with, is it because of something I need to improve as a trainer, or does it correlate with literacy or prior education level? So I can learn how to improve with certain populations or demographics by looking at the scores at the end of the week and saying, okay, next time I can improve in this way, or I can teach this a little bit different.
Participants depend on skilled cultural orientation trainers to help them succeed. Trainer development, growth, and improvement is essential to the ongoing success of programs and participants.
It can get a little repetitive as a trainer when you're teaching the same course again and again. A way I keep myself interested is to keep up in any of the changes that are happening. I'll also be looking for new activities. I like finding new curriculum, existing curriculum that is available, but also just finding other types of material that might make the class more fun.
All right, everybody look at me.
One thing I would want to say to fellow trainers, don't look at a training like I have always done this, I'm ready to do this all the time. You have to be prepared. Keep reading. Get interested in your work. I love my work. I enjoy it. I like to read. I like to engage with other trainers.
Everybody again. 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, that's a good day we've had.
Abdaran congratulations, all the best.
It's important to share with other trainers
how they carry out some activities. You learn from them. This enhances your skills in training or instruction. You ask them, how do you do this activity? I can't seem to get it to them. Can you help me? And somebody will explain to you, and you can see how the approach he or she uses, and you gain from that. So it's very important to share with others as well. There's a point you may be missing, and they just fill the gap for you.
Okay, everybody, welcome to this week's Cultural Orientation graduation. Sung Dung. An orientation class would be successful if participants left class and they were more able to actively engage with their life in America, if they were encouraged, if they were confident. And this will mean really different things for different people. For an educated person, it might mean learning some skills that they didn't have before, like how to open a bank account or what is credit. For a pre-literate client, it may mean being able to introduce themselves confidently in English, or the importance of having their telephone number on them if they can't say it in English. I think refugees being confident, moving forward more informed, that's what makes a successful orientation.